We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the TheP-LotPod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the TheP-LotPodcast here. I'm totally not still half asleep from yesterday. Had a little self-inflicted wounds trying to set this podcast up this morning. Not dissimilar to your Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Always one step away, huh?
Yeah, this is, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, man. So I don't know what we're going to call this podcast today. Like 2-minute drill. It's not going to be our normal 2 hours. Michael and I both have things we got to do this weekend that's going to abbreviate the time. So, which is fine because I don't feel like talking about, I don't know. Mets won yesterday. Yankees and Guardians. They had a great game.
Won yesterday. It just...
Yeah, it's trending to what baseball wanted. The LA versus New York World Series, first time since like the late 70s. They both played each other.
Yeah, they want the two biggest markets in there, two biggest stars, and they move closer. With the going back to Game 6 in LA, Dodgers up 3-2. And the Yankees looking to close out the series in 5 tonight in Cleveland. But yeah.
Well, Michael, we're not here to talk about good things that are happening. We're going to start talking about bad things that are happening. More specifically, what is happening across the pond tomorrow morning. Well, our time. Their time, though, would be mid-afternoon. I would say might be the early right to pick first overall in the NFL draft.
So to start us off, we have in London, back-to-back weeks in London, by the way, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had to have just stayed out there, right? I mean, they were in London last week.
Out there. They stayed there because I think
talk about how the commissioner feels about a team. I know that, they've been going to London virtually every season for the last probably like decade at this point, roughly. But God, to be out there 2 weeks in a row is just kind of insane. 2 games in a row where your fans got to wake up at 9 a.m. to get ready to watch the game, all that sort of stuff. Just kind of wild. But anyways, the Jaguars, I guess, play host. They probably have enough of a fan base out there. To the New England Patriots, Drake May making his second career start. His first career start started off not great. Bad interception on an overthrow. Looked like a classic rookie situation, but then he really, really settled in. Ended up having good offensive numbers, ended up looking good in a tough loss to the Texans, but Drake May looked good, and that's probably all that matters, honestly. You don't mind if you're losing games if you're New England. If Drake May's looking good, get as good of a pick as you can, get another difference maker, start pushing the Patriots franchise back in the right direction. But in regards to this game, Jacksonville's 6-point favorites, and I mean the betting public's heavy on New England, and I mean I don't think there's a remote scenario that Jacksonville deserves to be that many point favorite. Not even a little bit. Like I can't buy into it. Even if I'm trying to wrap my head around. Ooh, how can Jacksonville blow out the Patriots? Because that's basically what this line is. And I know the Patriots stink, but Jacksonville.
I feel like it's a push, dude. I feel like it's a push. Like,
yeah. I'm taking New England.
Nothing. It's like not nothing. Oh my god, could you imagine if it's nothing in the end of the game? No, it's gonna be like I don't know, dude. Like 2020. Brian Thomas catches a touchdown. I don't know. They like Doug for some weird reason goes for 2, misses it, and then there's your 6 right there. That should
Yeah,
be
or like the game goes
that's
to
the game.
overtime, something like that. Yeah,
That's the game. That's the game.
I'm taking New England though.
I'm taking New England as well. Yeah, like kind of what you said, dude. Who the hell are the Jaguars to be laying 6 points to anyone? Like,
Yeah.
like realistically, I think the Patriots might be a better football team,
Oh
coaching
man.
wise, and maybe even talent wise at this point. Because, like, bro, we were talking about this like in the parking lot last week, dude. Gabe Davis caught 2 touchdowns. Dude, he
He
blows.
dropped two more. Like
Yes,
he like there were what, four drop touchdowns last week for Jacksonville.
they
Like it was
blow. They
yeah,
suck, dude. Oh
they
my
do stink.
god.
They're very, very bad.
They
Okay.
yeah. Well apparently you I remember 2 years ago you said Trevor Lawrence reminds you a lot of Carson Wentz. I didn't know when you made that comp you meant that his receivers would drop
Yeah.
everything
I
because
didn't mean it in such an apparently derogatory way, the way things have turned for T-Law and the Jags at this point, but yeah. Um, Next game we have an NFC South. Oh, sorry, not an NFC South. Man, aren't we just totally out of it? So the Seattle Seahawks are on the road against the Falcons. Falcons are 3-point favorites at home. Seahawks need a win in the worst way. Starting 3-0, dropping their last three. And I do think that this is a pretty good matchup for at least their offense to really, really not start cooking because it has been. And, even against San Francisco on Thursday night last week, DK Metcalf gets a 60-yard touchdown wiped off the board because of a stupid illegal formation that was very, very inconsequential. Geno Smith, a slightly better ball from like a 40-yard touchdown to Metcalf. Metcalf also was like barely a toe out of bounds on a little short touchdown after that play. So he was like dangerously close to having a crazy good statistical day on Thursday night and ended up having a mediocre statistical day because of all those things that I had just mentioned. I think Metcalf kind of gets off the schneid and gets back to some of his earlier weeks, has a pretty big week this week. Atlanta's 3.5, 3-point favorites at home, and I'm taking Seattle +3. I kind of think they win outright. I think it's a big spot for them. They need to win. And Atlanta being 4-2, it's a game it's a tough home game, but it's a game that you can somewhat afford to drop the way the NFC South is starting to shape up as New Orleans looks absolutely putrid. They're also extremely decimated, and Tampa continues to just be kind of what they've been in the post Brady era, which is, the same the whole time. So I'm taking Seattle +3. I think they win the game.
I'm going with Atlanta, and the reason why
Wow.
I'm taking I think this is gonna be I feel like this might be another push too, dude. I think this is gonna be the total's 51.5, and everyone's loading up on the over for good reason. Neither one of these teams can consistently rush the quarterback at all.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're gonna see probably Geno Smith and like Kirk Cousins combined for like 1,000 yards passing. Like it's gonna be an insane like passing day. I think you
Mhm.
kind of outlined it with DK Metcalf. Like I crapped on Drake London like a lot. This is the
He's
best
turned
he's
into a
ever
very
been.
nice
This is
receiver.
easily the best he's ever looked. And
Yeah.
Darnell Mooney, who I kind of want one of the Eagles to sign in the offseason as the number 3 receiver. He's looked really good.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is cooking down there. And I think that still continues. I just, the outcome of the game, I think both teams are going to be cooking. So, yeah.
I think so. I'm going to take Atlanta. I just think that it's them, and I think I think they could still win the division because I think they're going to
So do
trade for Hassan Reddick, who has been being shot.
interesting.
They
Interesting.
kind of feels like the place for Hassan Reddick to go. I know people mentioned Detroit. Detroit doesn't run the defense to maximize Hassan Reddick. He's not a hand in the dirt D end.
No, they need like a 4-3 style D end. But
And I feel like the Falcons run like Hassan Reddick would be like the Von Miller role with the Falcons, but I'm taking Atlanta.
next game we have the Titans on the road against the Bills. Bills coming off a disgusting Monday Night Football victory against the Jets. Um, totally unwatchable game. Officiating was way too involved, pretty bad. Bad for both sides, but it
Bro,
really
why
showed
is
that they were
every
pushing
single
for the Jets.
primetime game like this over officiated mess, dude? Like I don't
Yeah,
get
it's a bad like it's games like that that make me take a step back and be like, has the product really gotten worse since I was like a kid? And like based off that game, the answer is yes, because that was egregious. But the Bills made a big trade. They acquired Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns to really help steadfast that wide receiver core, and I think that's a great move for them. We talked about Devontae Adams, which we'll talk about later because he was also moved. But when they didn't get him, felt like Buffalo still wanted to make a big move because the receiving core, talking about all off season, lacking. You losing Diggs, losing even Gabe Davis, even if he's not that good, they just didn't do a ton to kind of replenish it. Um, it was working the last 3 weeks, I'd say. Their offense has been struggling. They still got the win last week, but I think that was honestly more of a product of the Jets missing Robert Saleh because the Jets defense, I would say, was probably the worst it's looked as a whole
oh
in a
wow,
long
what a
time.
surprise.
Yeah. So the Bills are 9.5-point favorites at home against the Titans. I think they win. I think they cover. I think it's one of those things where they gotta, they're gonna show off Cooper against like a stingier defense up front for the Titans. So I'm gonna take the Bills to win big. So I'm taking Buffalo.
I agree. I think that this Titans team, uh, I mean, I don't know, man. Are we going to see another Will Levis meme where he's just going to do something stupid in this game, and then
Yeah,
it's going to
it's
be
like
like Bill's up 28-0, and he, I don't know, tries to throw a pass with his left hand
left-handed. Yeah,
or something stupid like that. I'm going to take the Bills as well to romp this Titans team. It's weird. The Titans actually have a semi decent defense, but I don't know, like, do you think the Titans might trade one of these guys they signed in the offseason for picks because they're so bad? Like L'Jarius Sneed has been underperforming. Tony Pollard is like okay, but like
he's actually having a nice year. He looks like,
um
I mean, a team like Dallas. Like,
Alshire, the
I
linebacker.
think I think if like you want to talk about someone that's like probably disgruntled, it's Calvin Ridley. I mean, Calvin Ridley had like almost a little tirade in the post game presser as he finished up a stat line with 8 targets, 0 catches. Not something that you see too often. Um,
Yeah, but you see what the targets were?
yeah, and he went off in his presser where he's like, I need the ball effing sooner. Like, you got to get me involved in the game. Um,
Well, I think they're
'Cause
trying to get him involved in the game. They just
it
suck.
was like I think the majority, I think like half his targets came in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
And they like sprinkled the first half throughout the first 3 quarters, and they were terrible targets. And I understand why he was frustrated. So it'd be interesting to see if the Titans start selling off, like you said, some of the pieces they signed. But yeah, they're pretty dumpster-ish. Next team we have here, this is an interesting one. So the Bengals are on the road against the Browns. Obviously, the Browns are in full tank as they're committed to the creep each week, and he is genuinely one of the worst quarterbacks
in history.
in history I've ever seen. Um, Anybody else in the Eagles probably end up losing to the Browns last week. It's going like that right now, and they just traded Amari Cooper. Good news for them is they get Nick Chubb back. I can't expect Nick Chubb to be too involved first week back from his gruesome injury last year. But I think they're going to get him acclimated back up again. The Bengals, their biggest voodoo, Joe Burrow's biggest voodoo has been the Browns in his career.
1-5.
1-5, and like this line's moved massively due to the Amari Cooper being traded away news to
Oh, dude, are
-6.
we picking the brownies on
Like
tomorrow?
I can't seriously pick the Browns. And like I gotta think about like the Bengals defense. Bengals defense has been pretty atrocious all year. It was good last week against a very battered up Giants team, and I think the beaten up Giants are probably pretty similar to what the Browns are. Um, and the Browns honestly have the worst quarterback play. So I think it's another nice opportunity for the Browns or for the Bengals defense to look pretty solid. And if the Eagles game taught me anything, it's that if there's a way that you can kind of beat up on the Browns or at least take advantage of, is that they're going to run some press coverage on the outside with no safety help. And the Eagles, better or for worse, abuse that with A.J. Brown. And I see the Bengals doing the same thing with both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins, by the way, looked awesome against the Giants. He looks fully like back and effort levels off the charts right now. The catches he's making, he's fighting for every inch. So I'm gonna take the Bengals -6. I think it's about time that they look good against the Browns, and I think that everything about this game is setting up for that to go well for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, we say this almost every week, dude, with this stupid ass team. The Bengals are 2-4, right? They're 2-4 right now. Like they're a long shot, like a long shot to make the playoffs. They need to start winning games. They need to start stacking wins somewhere. Like this, like they need to beat this team. Like if they can't, like if they lose to the Browns, dude, they're gonna fall to last place in the AFC North.
Yeah, and
And
that's
you
just
feel, and let me ask you this: do you feel like the team that loses this game is gonna fire their coach?
like this game.
Possibly,
See, if
because
I'm the
because
Browns,
because with Stefanski, it feels like
you can't fire Stefanski.
oh, I don't think Stefanski is. This is like a prototypical.
Like I think Stefanski's a pretty good coach. I mean,
I think so too. But
he's won what, two
yeah, but
Coach of the
Michael, like,
Years?
do you hear of Bill Belichick's little like quip about Woody Johnson? It's the same thing with the Browns: ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, and that I mean that's an awful thing to have. And you look at, I mean, if they just start scapegoating Kevin Stefanski, I mean that's just a really bad place to
Well,
be.
it's how the Browns are. Like, why would you realistically still have Deshaun Watson playing? Like, why would you like?
My thought is like I think genuinely I think they're begging at this point for the legal action to take place. Um, I think they want Watson out there just like as like a see how terrible he is sort of thing. I don't know. It's so crazy to me that like they're just so committed to him. It's not like it's very difficult to just get rid of him. I have no sympathy for the Browns either because they did this to themselves. But like there's a lot of guaranteed money for them to just kind of cut him or whatever, and obviously no one's trading for that garbage. Uh, Not a good place to be, but
well, yeah,
they
because
deserve
now
it.
apparently there's a rumor in Cleveland that Stefanski wanted to bench
I'm
Deshaun
sure I'm
Watson,
sure he has.
and the owner of the team has denied it because they're like basically we're paying him all this money, he needs to play.
He needs to just play, and that's just an awful place to be. Um,
So yeah, let's go Bengals. Let's just take the Bengals, bro. All right.
next game we have, this is a good game. Probably one of the better games this week. The Texans are on the road against the Packers. The Packers are 3-point favorites at home, and interestingly enough,
I
like
agree with this.
interesting. I think I disagree with this. I saw some Jordan Love stats. He's been you talk about guys that are bad against the blitz. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league against the blitz this year, and it makes sense. You think back to the Eagles game. He threw his interception against the blitz. One of the Eagles' 2 turnovers on the season, and he just it was a nice win for them last week, but they're in a they're not getting Josh Jacobs, I think, fully involved as they could or should be doing. What was a big part of their offense was Aaron Jones, and he was very, very dynamic. And I know that Jacobs is not the receiver that Aaron Jones is, as Josh Jacobs, I think, has the most catches in NFL history without a receiving touchdown in his career, which is a pretty crazy stat to think about, considering he's been in the league for a pretty decent amount of time. But I think that Josh Jacobs needs to be more of a focal point of the offense to hit that next gear. They can throw it pretty effectively with all their weapons, all their receivers. They have a bunch of solid receivers that Jordan loves slinging it around to. Romeo Doubs, obviously, after pouting, had a big day last week. So I think the Packers are good, but I think the Texans are the better team. And it just feels like one of those things where the Texans are gonna end up having a pretty good record, but I think that they have flaws that are gonna catch up to them, and potentially lead to an early playoff exit. But I think this is one of those games that false belief, which maybe I shouldn't say it's false, but I think that's where this gets ballooned out. I'm taking Houston +3.
I'm taking the Green Bay Packers. The reason why I feel like this is justified is even though the Texans are 5-1, Michael, they have a point differential right now of 8.
Mm.
And for just a point of comparison, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Michael, the team that we make fun of constantly on this show, do you know what their point differential is?
Is it better than 8?
Significantly better than 8. Try 38 points.
Damn.
That and they're
What's that
benching
balloon from?
and they're benching Justin Fields
Justin
for
Fields.
an ancient Russell Wilson. So in other words, I think
Oh, so it's all ballooned up from that Raider game last week. Yeah, that makes sense. But anyways,
yeah, that's the thing though. Like they're
taking care of their business. Yeah.
well, you look at the game last week they had against Drake May. I thought it was a horrible idea to put Drake May in that spot as his first start.
It looked like it to start the game too. Like they were,
but he settled in, and now I think that was a smart decision in the long run.
yeah.
I think Jordan Love is settled in. I think he's going to cook this defense. Like you mentioned, he's right. He's not good against the blitz, but the problem with the Texans, dude, is just they look like last year's Eagles team. They're like something's off, and you just
Oh boy, what
and
an awful thing to
CJ
say about
Stroud
somebody.
last week, they're playing the Patriots. They're you're the Texans offense. You know that the Patriots aren't going to score.
Right.
And I feel like when you're an offense, your opponent can't score. It's just so much easier to play as opposed to, playing with your butthole like this.
Yeah.
You're nervous like the Eagles are.
Right.
So, yeah, man, I like this Packers team. I know that the NFC North, for some reason this year, is now the best division in football, most competitive.
Most wins. That's everything.
Most wins. Honestly, I think the NFC is a better conference than the AFC, and I think this is a good litmus test
There
for
you
that.
go. This will be for sure. Next game we have. Excuse me. We have the Dolphins on the road against the Colts. This line's moved. No Jonathan Taylor again, but Anthony Richardson is back. Some could argue how that affects the line, how that should affect the line. Flacco has looked has looked like what he's been looking like in these later days of his career. Some drives look really good, some are just like, okay, get this old man off the field. It's all that sort of stuff. But the Dolphins have proven that their offense is nothing without Tua, which is insane to me that like your offense is so perfectly curated for your starting quarterback that no one else can effectively run the scheme. And it's so hard for my mind to understand. Colts are 3-point favorites. They're 5-1 against the spread. Dolphins are 1-4 against the spread. I think they're making it seem like Tua will be back next week, and just the way things look, I think the Dolphins are legitimately incapable of winning a game without Tua at quarterback. Their offense is incapable of getting the ball to their star players this week, and I know Devon Achane has been banged up all week. It feels just a bad scene for the Dolphins. I'm taking the Colts -3.
I'm going with the Dolphins, mainly because dude, Anthony Richardson blows. He blows. He sucks. He's so bad, and I feel like, to me, like the Colts offense is stagnant with him at quarterback, and they just look like Shane Steichen's offense just looks significantly better with like anyone else but Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he needs more time to develop. I don't know if he needs to sit, but like he's looked like as bad as Bryce Young's looked this year, Michael. And what's Bryce Young doing right now? He's holding a damn clipboard in
Yeah.
favor of Andy Dalton. And here's the thing though. This is why it's not just why I'm taking the Dolphins. The Colts might be the weakest team in the NFL on the outside of the field.
Mhm.
And you have to figure at some point Tyreek Hill and like Jalen Waddle are going to go off at some point. And I find it
Yeah.
rather surprising that Mike McDaniel cannot make an adjustment.
Yeah,
Like,
he's such an interesting coach because listen, if there's ever a week for it to figure itself out, it's coming off a bye week. But you're right. Like Mike McDaniel, he has a scheme that's like Shanahan-y, but it's also a little more like spread than the average Shanahan offense.
I'll
It's a
say like
little
more like
more,
up tempo.
yeah, it's more up tempo, it's more speed based, it's more zone based, where like they can run the ball extremely well like they did last year. But, like, you still wouldn't say the Dolphins' offensive line is great. It's just the way they scheme their run. They're not asked to do a ton, and they just kinda trust their athletes to get the yards that they need to get. And, like, what that leads you is that they're a very, very fast team, and they're very, very soft. You have your receivers that are fast and athletic, and you have your running backs that are fast and athletic, and no one's really gonna play super physical. And when you don't have Tua to accurately and good timingly hit the guys, and you don't have to really feel threatened by the passing game at all without him, you can key in more on the run, put your guys in the right position so you're not just getting outran. It's so bad, and I think that it's an indictment on McDaniel as a coach, and it honestly has been affecting the way I view him. And I've thought pretty highly of him the last few years since he's come around as a head coach. But I don't know, man. Like as a head coach, if your offense is like egregiously inept without your starting quarterback, and it's like you should have invested more in the backup quarterback position, but you have Tyler Huntley, who's viewed as one of the more effective backups in football. He's won games. He's been playing like good enough in big games to almost win playoff games. Like, and you can't have your offense look remotely competent without your
Yeah, that's
limited starting
exactly, dude.
quarterback to begin with.
That's you hit the nail right on the head. Like good coaches, like back in the day, like we don't really see this as much anymore, Michael, because because of all the rules protecting quarterbacks just get injured less than they did like 20 years ago. Dude, I remember like when the Eagles, when like Donovan McNabb would get hurt, like the Eagles would summon like AJ Feely or Coy Detmer or like Jeff Garcia off the bench, and they would come in. They won't look better than McNabb, but the offense was still capable of scoring
It
points.
can function. Like, I mean,
They could score points. Instead of scoring like 28 points, they'd score like 24 points.
I mean, you look at what other teams have done. Like we just talked about. You look at what Kevin Stefanski has done with Joe Flacco. You looked at what Shane Steichen did with Gardner Minshew last year, and even Joe Flacco this year. You look at what the Vikings
Sam
did with.
Darnold.
Yeah, I was just going to say Vikings with Sam Darnold this year. Even last year with Josh Dobbs and what they did. You look at what the Cardinals did with Josh Dobbs. Like, it's just other teams have shown. Hell, you look at what the Cowboys did a few years ago with Cooper Rush, and the games that Dak missed, and it's just like it should not be this difficult to get anything out of your offense when like two it's out. What I think it boggles my mind so much about is that we give Tua his fair share of on-field slander. Because he's what he is. He's a limited quarterback, and it's like if your limited starting quarterback is the only human that can run your offense effectively, and anyone that's like just not him is incapable, it's unbelievable. Like it's not like, it's you're taking away Lamar Jackson and you're trying to replace him with some very slow, unathletic
Trace McSorley.
quarterback. Yeah, or just it's really jarring. Like you're taking probably like one of the 15th best quarterback in football ish, roughly with Tua, and you're removing him, and it's all of a sudden your offense that has a top receiver duo and a top running game is just like it can't do anything. It's terrible. It's really something. Not something I've seen much of. Anyways, enough of that game. That's way too much time on that awful game. That's going to be Sunday. This is probably the game. Well, I wouldn't say the game of the week, but this is a good game. On paper, especially the NFC North top combatants go at it. The Detroit Lions are now 1.5-point underdogs on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. This is obviously with the Aiden Hutchinson news. The Lions absolutely pounded Dallas last week. It was very,
They did.
very entertaining. The Lions are very, very well coached, well equipped, well run football team at the moment. And things are going great. Obviously, that Aiden Hutchinson injury, I do think puts a bit of a cap on their ceiling for what this team can be, and obviously what this team has aspirations for, which is a Super Bowl. They need to go make a move. They can't just go the rest of the year with these edge rushers because they will simply struggle. Even against Dallas, like, they were doing their thing, some garbage time stuff, but it just, you look at what they got. Like Marcus Davenport tore his tricep this year, and he's out for the year. And then Aiden Hutchinson, poor Aiden Hutchinson, awful injury, UFC style of like the leg just totally, you see it snap in there on the replay. Just terrible, terrible stuff. So both those guys out for the year. I was watching like a Theo video of basically he's like the guys that they're having playing defensive end. This is just not like their normal position, and they're just like not good at it. So obviously, it's going to be a point of emphasis. I think if it's not going to be Hassan Reddick, because maybe it's not the best positional fit, I'm sure you feel the same way that this guy should be the guy they go after, and that's Max
I don't think
Crosby.
they get him. I don't think anyone gets him. I know you're
I
talking
I
exactly
I
what you're
lean
talking
to
about.
also think that no one gets Max Crosby this year, but I do think the
That
Lions
will
are the
be in the
best
off
fit.
season.
I think you gotta try now though. Like you gotta try something. You can't if you go the rest of the year without uh addressing it, like it's gonna be your downfall, and it's gonna be such a shame because this is probably your last year of this coaching staff. altogether. Definitely probably your last year of Ben Johnson before he leaves for a better head coaching opportunity than the ones that were available this past year. Like, he can say how much he cares about wanting to win a Super Bowl with the Lions and all that sort of stuff, but the fact of the matter is that the head coaching openings this offseason kind of sucked, and he wanted no parts of what was
Oh, and
available for him.
he's definitely gonna be
Listen, he'll be
making.
chomping at the bit to come here. He'll be chomping at the bit to,
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
Dallas. Like,
So the guy I think they're gonna pick up is a. He's very familiar with the NFC North. That my guess is the Browns are Browns. Sorry, the Lions are going to pick up. I think if they're going to trade for Zadarius Smith from the Browns, you just mentioned the Browns having a fire sale. Like,
hmm,
he's had 3 sacks this year, but like he's on an ass team. And like if you're the Lions, dude, I think realistically, like you can't just like go for a home run and then just strike out. You need to get someone in
you
there.
need to have a contingent. You need to get somebody. You can shoot
No,
for
not
Crosby.
just somebody, like more than one person. I think they should get 2 defensive ends.
They should, honestly. It's such an undesirable place to be. It's almost, I'm not a big Lions fan myself. I think the
Oh,
way that they're treated like the media darlings and stuff, like, it bothers me. All
but
that
let's
sort of
talk about
stuff.
this game. Let's go to
Yeah.
this game. The Vikings are a 1.5 point favorite at home, but everyone's taking a lot of people are taking Detroit. Uh everyone I'm just done picking against the Vikings until they like lose. I feel like after scoring 47 points and running the score up on the Cowboys, I feel like there's a possibility that, and they've also keep in mind they also scored a ton of points on that weak Seahawks team. I don't think they can just I don't know bully ball their way over the Vikings like they could against the hapless Cowboys and Seahawks. This Vikings team, I think, is maybe even better coached than the Detroit Lions are, and that's not an insult on Detroit. I think that's how the Vikings are.
No.
Um,
And the Vikings are getting them at a good spot, coming out of a bye. They were able to, like, gather themselves for this game, really look forward to this game.
if there's a game where the Detroit Lions kryptonite is going to get exposed, or kryptonite getting exposed, well, that doesn't make any sense. Where you're going to see Detroit's weakness get like exploited, it's going to be their secondary, specifically Jay Jettas and even Jordan Addison.
Mhm.
Mostly Jay Jettas. I think he's going to have a monster game at home.
Yeah.
This is a really tough spot for Detroit. I'm going to go with the Vikings, Michael.
Yeah, and it's just coming on, like, this game goes one of two ways, and it's the one way is I think Minnesota doesn't, like, blow them out or anything, but, like, they win and you feel like they're gonna win the whole game sort of thing, or the Lions have some, like, huge emotional victory without Hutchinson. It's, like, such a big deal and all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna rock with you. I'm gonna take the Vikings. I just it's just such a tough
Another
spot.
thing I want to bring up too, like just a quick point. Jared Goff's looked really good these last few weeks against these trash defenses. But when they play like a semi decent defense, he's just I don't know, dude. It's like
He's had a bad year against good defenses, and it was good get right teams to play against for him to look good. But Jared Goff's definitely a quarterback that you can get to if you start rattling him and all that sort of stuff. So if they're going to start sending their chaos blitzes, and we'd be foolish to not think the Lions like have a plan for it, but yeah, I think we might see like a couple Goff turnover. It could get interesting. But next game we're skipping that, so we're on to the 4 o'clocks. The Raiders are on the road against the Rams. So the Raiders are just putrid. They traded Devontae Adams. They're gonna get calls about Max Crosby. They're just nothing's going well out there in Vegas. And they play the Rams. The Rams are coming off a bye. Excuse me. The Rams are 7-point favorites at home. They also don't look very good themselves, but they do get Cooper Kupp back, which is very nice. I also think they get Tyler Higbee back. So all those people that picked up Colby Parkinson for their fantasy leagues don't have that
Is Puka
option.
Nakua gonna
I don't think this week. Is he?
I mean, he's on the injury report, but he could also be. Is he on injured reserve?
Like he's nearing a return. I don't. I don't think Puka's coming back, but could potentially. Yeah, I don't think he's coming back. So you get Cup back though, and I think Cooper Cup's going to have a nice big day, coming back from injury, coming off a bye week. Things set up well for the Rams, and I think the Rams need to come out and look like themselves a little bit. They're 1-4, and they've lost some really, really tough games. And I think this is a good opportunity for them to
I
put together a
mean,
performance.
Michael, it is absolutely insane that a team that has one win, they're 1-4, is
Yeah.
laying 7 points at home.
Yeah, and well, I guess the Raiders stadium gets taken over, so it's a couple of teams that their fans don't care. But I do presume to be a lot of Raider fans at this game.
Yeah, dude, I would not even touch this game with a 10-foot pole, but we have to pick it, right? So
Agreed.
I'm going with the Rams. Like the Raiders, I just looked at their injury report. They're missing a ton of guys. I feel like this. I mean, I think Antonio Pierce is done at the end of the year. They're going to bring in a real coach. This just looks like it's bad. They're probably going to draft a quarterback. They might tank.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, they're a mess, the Raiders.
I'll make that right game.
Next game we have is the Carolina Panthers on the road. Panthers have a weird amount of 4 o'clock games this year. Panthers on the road against
Sound
the
effects.
Commanders, and the Commanders are big favorites, 9.5 points. Coming off a tough loss to the Ravens, but it kind of went how I think it went exactly how they could have hoped it went in a losing effort, which is just like they battled, they were in it till the end, and you were given Jaden Daniels a game with adversity and all that sort of stuff. It was a good exposure game, good learning curve, and just this game's we've been trying to predict the trap game for the Commanders, and
This
we
feels
thought
like
it
the
was
trap
gonna.
game,
I was
doesn't
gonna
it?
say we thought it was we thought it was the Browns game, and they handled the Browns. You can't be trapped against a good team, so that eliminated the Ravens game. To play the Bears next week, they just got to flex the 4:30. Is this the trap game for the Commanders? Is this the game? Is this a letdown spot after a tough road loss to the Ravens where you looked good and it was a good battle? Is this a spot where, you're laying this huge number and you're supposed to handle and beat the crap out of this team? And do they just come out and lay somewhat of an egg? Maybe don't necessarily lose, but they're in a tight spot at the end of the game and they got to go on a game-winning drive just to get out of there. Maybe I think I'm going to still take the Commanders, and trust, you know, the way their offense has looked all year, and fade just the Panthers still looking rough. I think Jonathan Brooks is coming. I don't think he's playing this week, is he? I don't
I
think
thought he
so.
was. I thought he was taken off of injured reserve, but you're right. He
He
might.
was, but I don't know if he's playing. It might be. I don't know. But I'm gonna take the Commanders. But I'm cautiously taking the Commanders. If I'm taking them, actually betting, I probably do not take them -9.5. So
Yeah, and I feel like last week Vegas got taken to the cleaners, right? All the
yeah,
heavy
everything was
won.
pretty chalk. I mean, we
after
had a nice
after
week.
after Vegas killed everyone the first 5 weeks of the season, right? With the
Yeah,
books on the
I
books.
mean, it was chalk. You look at the favorites last week against the spread. every favorite won, and every favorite won the game, and every favorite so there was one underdog that won, and that was the Colts on the road against, or that was the Colts against the Titans, which you can argue that that was a bad line. Um, the Eagles were favorited heavily. They won, but they didn't cover. The uh, Ravens were favorited heavily. They won and it pushed. Besides those 3 games, every other game, the team that was favored won and they covered. And there were some pretty heavier-ish favorites, or it was like 3-point lines that felt like they should have been bigger. It was just, yeah, Vegas got beaten up for sure last week.
Just kind of looking at the Commanders and how they handle these bad teams that they play.
I mean, this year they're handling them pretty well.
I mean, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule, and after this game, they play the Bears at home. They play the Giants in New York, where they should have probably lost to the Giants because their Giants kicker got hurt, so they couldn't attempt
Right.
field goals. At home again against the Steelers. Then they play against the Eagles on
On
Thursday,
Thursday.
and then they have to host the Cowboys. Then they host the Titans. Then they have to go into New Orleans, which at that point, I mean, you'd hope that the
Saints
Saints
are,
are healthy. You know,
I mean,
yeah,
they're
the Saints
dead
are
in
a
the water.
disaster. Then they host the Eagles, and then they close the year hosting Atlanta, which they could be. That could be like Atlanta's going to be playing for the division at that point.
And
And
then
then they have to. Then they go to Jerry World to play the Cowboys to close the season. I mean, the schedule's a lot tougher for them in the second half than it was in the first half. I'm taking the Panthers, dude. I feel like I could kind of see this Commanders team hasn't had like a whoa, what the hell just happened kind of deal. I could see them just coming out flat, and then everyone's kind of like they look a lot like the 2016 Eagles.
yes,
And like I'm
totally.
streaming the Commanders defense, which I don't think is good, but they're playing the Panthers who blow. And I both my tight ends are on a bye in fantasy, and I'm picking up Zach Ertz. And I
I
just
also have Zach Ertz this week.
so
Maybe
it
that's
just
the
feels
time
like
of it.
it's too easy. I mean, I'm just taking the Panthers, dude. Come on.
Yeah, be caution, you know.
Yeah.
This next game we have another Monday night doubleheader. I'm looking ahead of it. I hate those. Sorry. Anyways, next game we have the Kansas City
The
Chiefs
rematch
against
of the
the
Super Bowl.
49ers, a Super Bowl rematch. The Niners are 2-point favorites at home. Everyone loading up on the Chiefs spread. Um, Chiefs are 5-0. They're coming out of a bye. It's Andy out of the bye, which we know how excellent that is, how prepared that always is. And honestly, that's probably the only thing that they have going for them, for me at least, because everything tells me that I should just pick the Niners to win this game. Not that they're gonna, you know, kill the Chiefs or anything by any means, but it just this is just tough. You're asking the Chiefs a lot to be 6-0. And the Niners, but the Niners, they still have their problems, you know. They looked themselves on Thursday against Seattle, but they still, you know, even though they look themselves, they still have their red zone issues. You know, no Christian McCaffrey is just such a bigger deal than it's being made out to be, honestly. And they scored some in the red zone, but some of it was in the game was already out of hand. They're still kicking too many field goals down there. And I think this Chiefs defense can be stingy. I I think I gotta go Kansas City getting the points +2. I don't feel great about it. That'll be more of like a Sunday at 3:50 when I realize my 1 o'clock bets have died that I'm cooking up a bet for that game. So I think I'm gonna take Kansas City though for now.
Michael, this is a tough game, I think, to predict because you're going with Andy off of a bye, which, it's a great record coming off of a bye. But
Yeah.
the problem right now with the Chiefs is, I think, offensively, they look stale on
Mm-hmm.
offense. And part of it's injuries.
Yeah.
No, Rashee Rice is out for the season. Um, Not trading a third round pick to the Browns to get Amari Cooper and letting the team that you've basically have taken advantage of to build your dynasty in the
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bills just snag him before you. It doesn't seem like a good move. I mean, dude, I don't really see. I mean, Mahomes. Look, I'm not here to like slag on Mahomes, but if the Chiefs are like one and done the playoffs, like if they're like the 2023 Eagles and they're just one and done, then everyone's to be calling for Matt Nagy's head because it's Matt Nagy's fault that Mahomes is throwing balls into quadruple coverage and doesn't have a player to bail him out when he
Yeah,
makes some bad decisions.
what me and Nick, friend of the podcast, had an interesting conversation about Patrick Mahomes because, like, if when you're ranking your quarterbacks, you're still putting him at one, and you feel highly about him, whatever. But like, he hasn't played like the best quarterback in football for quite some time, at least in the regular
Yeah, the
season.
difference I'm sorry, can I have one
Yeah, go
point
ahead.
and
Yeah,
I'm just leaning on maybe what you're saying. When Brady had like no weapons, he wasn't putting up great numbers. He wasn't turning the ball over a lot either.
yes, yeah. Like, what the difference it looks like, and what it looks like with Mahomes is that like doesn't it look like he doesn't care? Like, doesn't it look like he's just not that like, oh, he doesn't care about the result because obviously they're winning and stuff, but it looks like he's just kinda
He's post Mike Holmgren, Brett Favre.
like, it looks like he's just kinda effing
Oh,
around.
you probably don't remember that. I
No,
remember that.
I do not. That is
So
before
like
my time.
Brett Favre with Mike Holmgren won 3 straight MVPs, a Super Bowl. Probably should have won another one, but they lost to Denver. And then the year before they won the Super Bowl, they lost to the Cowboys
Mhm.
in Dallas. So they had to go. There was like super teams they had to play, right? Where the Chiefs never had to face a super team.
They are the super
They
team.
are the super team, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, they're not getting a whole lot out of Xavier Worthy. I mean, everyone's talking him up like he was the next Deshaun Jackson. And like, there's growing pains, but like, I don't think.
It's gonna take time for him to turn into, like, a
And they just
legitimate
don't. And
weapon.
like, that this is where it's like, oh, we wanted Devontae Adams. And it's like the Raiders weren't going to trade him within the division and like
No.
piss off all their fans either at the same
Yeah,
time
and you
for
miss out. Like, you need to yeah, but it feels like he plays like he knows that we just have to he knows that his defense has gotten good enough to where they can sorta kinda bail him out, especially in the regular season, and he'll be a little more focused in the playoffs, but even we saw in last year's playoffs, he wasn't excellent, but he was just doing what they had to do to win. Like, it's still clearly in him, but it's like he just he's
Here's the
so
difference. I'm
the
sorry.
Chiefs so quickly turned into, like, the 2018, 2019 Patriots that beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs so quickly turned into that when they lost Tyreek Hill, and obviously not the year they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, but the following year where they really had no weapons, and it was, just last year we're talking about, "Oh, the Chiefs are this, Chiefs are this, Chiefs are this," and then they just go ahead and they win the whole damn thing because their defense was really, really good, and Mahomes just had to do a couple things.
What has saved the Chiefs last year was in the second half. Rashee Rice was one of the best receivers in the AFC.
Yeah, but it still wasn't equating into large point totals.
No, but the difference between I think the key difference between last year and this year's Chiefs is that they they had Isaiah Pacheco was healthy. They had Rashee Rice emerge. Like
Yeah,
this
no,
Chiefs.
I mean, they are also decimated with some
And
injuries.
I think that, it's just hard when you're playing like 3 postseason games on top of 17 games like every year Like you're going to be banged up.
The
You're going to have a year
fatigue's
where you're
going to
just
come back. That's why it's so hard
decimated
to.
from injury. And honestly, like they're 5-0, but like if the Niners had like any like courage in them or like like any semblance of like not being losers, they should win this game.
Yeah. So you're taking San Francisco?
I'm going to take San Francisco kind of very cautiously. Like I could see
it's a lot of cautious picks this week.
Cautiously, but
Yeah. Next game we have Sunday Night Football. The new look Jets.
The New York
One
Packers.
1.5-point favorites on the road against Pittsburgh Steelers, who we alluded to, made a quarterback change this week. Russell Wilson in, Justin Fields out, and everyone acting surprised. People are acting surprised. Oh, Steelers 4-2. How could you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like anyone with two eyes, you can see that Fields still just isn't good. They've been maximizing him basically by urging him, do not turn the ball over, take the few that's given to you, and like the defense will do the rest. And that's they've had success with that, but even still, he's not seeing the field well. He never has seen the field well, and he is just what he is. But the angle that no one's talking about, and it's like we talked about this at length when this trade was done, and it was the conditional draft pick. What was it, a sixth that turns into a fourth or something like that? If Justin Fields plays more than 50% of the snaps, like they do not want him to play over 50% of the snaps. They don't want that draft pick to turn to a fourth going to the Bears. They want it to stay a sixth. Like they know that their realistic Super Bowl aspirations or whatever do not really exist, and they don't need to be giving up a better day draft pick for this 1 year potentially of Justin Fields, where he has he has his 5th-year option next year that if they decide to opt into, you're paying Justin Fields, who we know is just not very good, $25 million. That's a lot. It's a huge commitment. So they'd rather just that draft pick not be they'd rather not it be like doubled down into, okay, we want to keep him, it's going to be a lot of money, and we're giving up a better draft pick for him. Granted, unless they have to. If Russell Wilson gets hurt like he was in the offseason and you like have to play Fields and that just happens the way it happens, that's whatever. But Russ was the guy to kind of be the starter. Now that he's like fully 100% healthy, and again, you can just see that Fields doesn't look very good. It makes sense that they're not going to put Fields out there at this point in the year. They played 6 games. They ideally would love for Justin Fields to play 0 games the rest of the season and perfectly come nicely underneath that 50% snap threshold for their draft pick.
Yeah, also too, I don't think it's not just the draft.
It's not just it, but I just think it's a part of it. Like it's.
Well, no, I think part of it is like you kind of saw like George Pickens' like reaction to like I don't know, he was kind of the way he's been acting, and like my buddies in our fantasy league were like talking. The guy who drafted Pickens, I was like, that's a really bad idea. And he was like, why?
Yeah.
I was like, because he's a nutcase and he's not that good. Like he's, he thinks he's way better than he actually is. And you think Russ can't throw the ball downfield, Michael. It's just like, like if this offense is, if I'm taking the Jets, because I feel like this.
So I'm also taking the Jets.
Because this Steelers team, to me, like I just gave you the point differential. And look, like they could very easily be 5-1 if can't believe I'm going to say this, if Justin Fields was an ass against the Cowboys. Yeah. Which look, if we're gonna bury him for like having one rough game, then there's a lot of quarterbacks that we can say deserve to be benched if for just having one bad game. But at least like they're winning games. They have a great defense. They're looking to add a receiver, which tells me like that's weird because like it's them wanting to add a receiver like tells me they want to compete. They want to be serious.
Or they want to trade away George Pickens because they just don't love him, which I think
and I also just think too that like I don't know. I don't think Arthur Smith is in the mood to develop a quarterback.
No, I don't think he is. And we got to talk about the flip side of this is that like the Jets can't lose. Like they legitimately cannot see a loss. They're already 2-4. Not that the season's on life support, obviously, but it's not in a good place. And that trade for Devontae Adams was like their jolt of life. That they better freaking win against what is not a great Steelers team in prime time, and
Oh
Rodgers
yeah,
and
because like in the
like
wild card, yeah, because in the wild card you got the Chargers, but now you have the Broncos,
yeah, and then you have
the
like
Bengals if they get hot,
the
and then you
Bengals
have
hit like it's just they're fortunate that other usual suspects of good AFC teams have kind of been struggling or have been injured. Um, but you can't make that trade for Devontae Adams the day after you were almost being gift wrapped the Bills game, but you can't come through and actually win it. And, him criticizing Mike Williams in the media for that end game interception, which not saying he's wrong, but it's like he's just such an asshole, Rogers, to like, you know, I know he probably should have ran the better route or whatever, but you also could have put the ball to the sideline more where that
look
doesn't
like
get
he slipped in
intercepted.
the route.
Well, he was supposed to run it, like, between the numbers and the sideline, and he was inside the numbers, and Rodgers was like, "I'm trying to look one way, almost no look at the other way, and he needs to be here," and he wasn't, and when I saw the last second he wasn't where he needed to be, I kinda just floated it, and he ended it. Yes, he did slip, but it's because whatever. He coulda just made a better throw too, he coulda took some more blame, but in typical Rodgers fashion, it's what you get. You make that trade, like, immediately after. Mike Williams didn't practice this week because of personal reasons. I'm sure the personal reasons were like, "Damn, I'm not gonna play anymore." Um, so the Jets have no option but to win this game. They legitimately have to. Moving on, game 1 of the 2 doubleheaders on Monday night. God, dude, I hate
Double barrel Monday Night Football.
I actually I hate them. I hate this, and I think they're doing it because, like, this will be a break period, I'm sure, between, like, the championship series and the World Series in baseball, so you can afford it, like, there was never whatever. Monday night, the earlier game, which is at the normal 8:15 time, the Baltimore Ravens are on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams coming off some tough. Like the Ravens had a nice win against the Commanders. I don't think the Ravens are at a point where they just need to win games, stack up wins, and blow out the bad teams. The team that's playing well or good. If you just kind of find your ways to win, it's fine. And Tampa Bay just an all-out rushing assault of the Saints defense. I have them. I have the Saints defense in fantasy, and it was great week 1. It's been burning me since, but I've never seen a defense record a touchdown and 3 interceptions and still have a garbage day fantasy-wise because you got 50 points hung on you. Like, it's truly remarkable. Um, Tampa's at home. They're 3.5-point underdogs. This is an interesting one because, the Ravens, I think, are the better team, but this is one of those, like, uh, it feels like one of those spots where you could just see some sort of, I don't know, like Lamar, if I'm remembering correctly, Lamar plays fairly well on Monday Night Football. He usually has some big games, some big plays. I think I'm going Baltimore.
Lamar has lost one game versus the NFC.
That too. I'm taking Baltimore.
I'm taking Baltimore as well, Michael. As we both, I think we both rate Baker higher than some people probably do.
Yeah, solid
Uh,
quarterback.
so I didn't really know this until recently. When Baker has to throw a pass like past like 15 yards down the field, so like when he's trying to get air
Well, yeah,
yards,
I saw that
he
stat.
is
Yeah.
bad. Like he's basically like like Liam Cohen has like golfized
Office
golfatized him, where it's like he's helping him read the defense, which is great because he's got more arm talent than Jared Goff. The problem is, and you saw it in the Saints game, was like if he's just trying to like throw deep shots to like Mike Evans or like meet him to deep passes, he just struggles, and that's kind of what his weakness was with the Browns too. Like
Yeah.
that's why like him and Odell Beckham couldn't get along because Odell Beckham is a deep threat receiver in his prime.
Yeah.
Now, like they've took Chris Godwin and they basically recasted him as Cooper Kupp.
For Cup, I was
And
just
Mike
about to say.
Evans and Mike Evans is like I don't know, dude.
He's like, it's just you look at Mike Evans
Brandon
and it's
Cooks, like I don't know, but like
yeah, like you look at Mike Evans and it's what he every year he feels like he has like 3 big play touchdowns, like down the field, he's open, it gets dropped in the buck. He had it with Jameis Winston, he had it with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he had it with Tom Brady. And that connection with Baker is a little bit off. And like you said, Baker has some issues throwing the ball down the field, and crazy,
which is the
considering how the
Ravens'
Eagles
biggest
played against
weakness.
them.
They can't stop
Yeah.
the pass deep down the field.
Yeah,
So if
we're
like
saying this, and Mike Evans is gonna have, like, a 60-yard touchdown this week. Like, you know
yeah,
that.
yeah, of
But,
course he is.
um,
When I put currency on Mike Evans, he plays like Jalen Rager.
yeah, everyone had currency on Courtland Sutton, and, I mean, he didn't
I
record a stat. He didn't come up in the box score,
So yeah, and I don't know. I just think that I don't know. Like, do you feel like we're gonna watch this game and we're gonna see like Derrick Henry run wild on this Bucks defense? We're gonna be like, why didn't the Eagles do this with Saquon in that game?
Yeah, I do think the Bucks run D is their strength with just like Vita Vea. So they gotta, I think you're gonna see a lot of tosses to the outside with Derrick Henry, getting him away from Vita Vea, uh, trying to get him to the edge and then downhill against the second level guys. It's the staple of his career at this point. And yeah. The nightcap, the 9 p.m. Monday night game. The Los Angeles Chargers are 2-point favorites on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals coming off a really, really, excuse me. The Cardinals are coming off what was a tough, tough loss, getting hammered away by the Green Bay Packers last week, following their very nice win against San Francisco 49ers the week prior. Cardinals seem to not be able to get out of their own way. They had the really tough loss to the Bills, and you hammer the Rams. Then you lose like a shady game that you probably got gypped out of against the Lions. Um, you follow it up with getting railed by Washington, and then you win a game you have no business winning against the Niners. Then you get railed again. It's just they're having such a strange season that does not seem to be entertaining from a fan standpoint. But they're 2-point underdogs at home. I'm gonna take them to win. I obviously cover and win. I I look at the Chargers and they're just still not throwing it. Like I know Herbert's been banged up, and I know the receivers aren't great, but God, like they're just not even entertaining the thought of airing it out a little bit. And I know that's like a Harbaugh thing, and it's working, but Christ,
So
does
what
it
you're
feel
saying is they're
strange?
boring.
Like
Is that what you're trying to imply?
they're not entertaining. Like I don't know, you have what everyone kind of collectively agreed I thought was a top 5 quarterback, and you're just not letting him throw the football. Like, and we knew this was going to happen when they hired Jim Harbaugh. We said we are about to see Justin Herbert. We thought I think things would go a little bit better, with just I think roster construction wise. But we were saying like Justin Herbert's about to get the most credit from the media in his life, just and it's going to be the year he does the least. Like we're going to see this Chargers team, I think, go to the playoffs and play whatever tough division winner that they get, and just they might even win it on the road, and like Herbert's going to get a playoff win this year, and it's going to be the year that he I think maybe barely eclipses like 3,000 passing yards. Like it's
No,
truly
I think
something.
he's gonna. No, I think.
Like John, he just had his first game last week of over 200 passing yards against the Broncos.
Yeah, but do you see some of their wins, dude? Like, they're
He has
like
100. He has 815 passing yards
26-3
through
against
5
the
games.
Panthers. Okay, or sorry,
Right.
22-10 against the Raiders. Like they just play this. My thing,
They're a
my
weird
thing. I
team.
mean, honestly, this Cardinals defense is pathetic. So I think you're going to see like vintage Herbert. I mean, also too, like you look at the receivers though. I like Lad
Mhm.
McConkey. I think he's
I like Lad
I
McConkey.
like
I
Lad
think he's a nice
McConkey.
player.
Like I don't know, like whatever they're getting out of Quentin Johnson is way more than I thought they were going to get out of him after watching him last year. In all
Yeah.
honesty, like Josh Palmer isn't good, but like the strength of their
Jim
team
Harbaugh
is their
deserves a lot of
but
credit.
their strength of their team is their offensive line, and like I
Yeah.
don't know, like J.K. Dobbins' ligaments haven't exploded yet, so they're just taking advantage of that. And I guess like Herbert was like I don't know in this like abusive like football relationship the last 4 years, where now he's not expected to have to go and do everything, and
Mhm.
now I think you're going to see them maybe air it out a little, not like crazy, but like just let Herbert win you the game. Let's like that's kind of what he did when he was when Harbaugh coached the Niners. Like they had Alex Smith manage the game great. They won a lot of games. They ran all over their opponents. They played really good defense. You know, it
Yeah.
is what it is. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking the Chargers because I kind of thought about this the other day for the Cardinals. They're gonna fire Gannon at the end of the season. He's done. Gannon is done.
Yeah, you
I
can't
think
be a
I
defensive
think
head
they're gonna
coach and
hire Ben
employ bad
Johnson.
defense.
I think they're gonna hire Ben Johnson because they have like some of like the Ben Johnson pieces already there, and with
Yeah.
like James Conner and maybe like
McBride and
McBride,
Marvin.
Marvin, and like I
You
don't
can have a
know,
little more fun with the quarterback. Like the way you can use Kyler is like the way you kind of use your dual-headed running back situation.
well, no, I just think that Kyler is just a better quarterback than Goff, and I just think that, like, I think Ben Johnson wants to mix it. Like, they have freaking Jared Goff like running routes, and like they have offensive tackles.
He wants to do stuff with
He's very creative with his play
yeah.
designs.
Yeah, and you can be more creative when you have a freak athlete like Kyler Murray is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this takes us to the Eagle game.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
So the Eagles
Yeah.
are 3.5-point favorites on the road against the Giants, and I told myself this week that I was not picking the Eagles, and here
I'm
we
taking the
are.
Giants too, but go ahead.
I'm taking the Eagles. I like
Stop it! Pick
I
against them,
I
please.
I can't like
Pick against them.
is
They're baiting you, Michael. This is like
is
you're like
Dexter Lawrence
Michael.
playing
You're like
football this week?
Michael. You're like a rat, and there's like the box, and the piece of cheese is under the box, and they're baiting you to go under it, and you're just like, I can't. I just love Havarti cheese that much. I guess I don't know.
Like Dexter Lawrence is questionable. He didn't practice this week. Neighbors is going to play, which is scary. Him and
Michael,
Wandale Robinson.
Michael, they called Sirianni. I'm guessing either Howie or Lurie after that game that we were at, like on last Sunday, and they made him apologize for jawing at fans. Now someone
No,
on
listen,
Reddit,
this is I
someone
can't
on
go.
Reddit was just like,
This
"Hey,
was
it wasn't
me.
like malicious. He was just like I was heckling him, and he said." Hey, we ran the ball. Do you like that kind of
Which,
thing?
like, not for nothing.
It's
He's the
weird.
worst. He's so weird. He's so emotional. He's so
But he's like emotional, like in like a weird way. Like emotional coaches, like I don't know, like Bill Parcells was an emotional coach because he would just yell at everyone. Where
It's
you're
different. This guy's yelling at the fans. This guy, because they were yelling, "Fire you," and you beat the Browns. the Browns by 4 points, and you have the audacity to be mouthing, "Oh, what now? What now?" to the fan. What do you mean, "What now?" It's not like you went up and hung 30 points in the second half and blew them out. You won by 4 against the Browns. You kinda shoulda lost the game. Jesus Christ, if Deshaun Watson wasn't so terrible, you woulda lost. The and he meddles, he sticks his dirty little fingers in everything, and it's so obvious. It's anyone can see the plays that he's deciding to meddle with, offensive or defensive side of the ball. 3rd and 1 at the end of the half. Let's call 4 verticals against 0 blitz, and Saquon misses a block, Hurts gets killed, and then the field goal
So
gets blocked.
someone
Like,
brought
that's a
up. So can I bring?
14 to 10-point
So
swing.
can I bring up something? And this isn't defending Sirianni. It's kind of more of an indictment on like maybe just the whole Eagles organization. Sirianni does like take on purpose, like basically all the blame when things go bad. Because do you remember when he said he's the one that called something stupid on defense, and then they asked Vic Fangio, and he's like, "Well, no, I called that."
Well, because he doesn't call the plays, but he says like, "Oh, get after him here." And again, I think the 3rd down that he gave up was like the 3rd and 11 that they should have scored, but they ended up not. I think that what he probably said was like, "Oh, let's sit back. Let's drop everyone back." And like Watson just hit Cooper on the deep slant and it was there for a 1st down. It just like he takes the blame when they win. When they win the game, he is like this noble fall on the sword, throw all your tomatoes at me. I'm the one. I am Spartacus or whatever. Like do it to me.
He's a
But when they
martyr.
but when they lose, he starts getting defensive and he starts getting snappy and like that's what's frustrating. That's what's annoying. Like when things are going well and they win, he's like, "Oh yeah, the bad stuff was on me. Bad stuff was on me. Bad stuff was on me." But they go out and they lose to Tampa and he's like very, very angry all the time. It's just it's exhausting, dude. It's very, very terrible. And like you look at every time he meddles, it goes poorly. I think he has a 0 success rate in meddling this year, and I think, like I think this team it's a shame
Sorry, that's great.
because it's a shame
Zero.
because this team, I think, could very, very easily get on the right track and actually look like they can be competitive.
So you mean so what you're saying is if Sirianni actually
Did
so
nothing like he's supposed to, this team would be so much better. You look at how much they struggle on opening drives, and it's their weird obsession, whether it's the organizational philosophy or it's him or whatever. He might have the Freudian slip in his interview for their big explosive plays that their first drives, they're so obsessed with it. They want to start a game with it so badly that it kills their drives every time. You run the ball, you get 5 yards with Barkley. I don't mind you throw the ball or whatever, but it shouldn't be an effing vertical route to AJ Brown on 2nd and 5, just throwing it up to him. And then you're throwing it to Goddard, who's clearly hurt and then doesn't play the rest of the game, incomplete. You still haven't scored a point in the 1st quarter. It's totally inexcusable. They're poorly disciplined. This is like the 3rd week in a row where their special teams has been utter garbage, and I know, like, a lot of these things just fall on the responsibility of the head
so
coach, and
on the blocked field goal, like that whole sequence, it's like we see it in sports all the time when you know a basic play like Saquon should have just got the 1st down. I don't know how he did not get the 1st down on that play. Even if he would have picked up an extra 10 yards past the 1st down and then they called a timeout, that's still way better than having to go
yes.
3rd and short. And look, let's say like that was just bad coaching because if you recall, it was 3rd and short. They ran 5 tush pushes and they were 5 for 5. And even if you don't want to be like, you know what, they should be keyed up on the tush push by now. Maybe we should like not do it again. Why not just go like, I don't know, run a traditional quarterback sneak or I don't know, like they were doing a good job like pitching it out to Saquon and he
It
picked
was
it up.
like, it's just it's awful coaching. You know what else is brain dead? And it's him because he's brain dead and he's asleep at the wheel. As soon as he got sacked, what did they do? They called timeout immediately. For what? You got sacked on 3rd and 1, it was 4th and, like, long now. You were kicking the field goal. Why did you call timeout with, like, 20-something, 30-something seconds left.
Run the clock down to like
Run the clock out and make this the last play of the
second.
half. And granted, they're almost lucky that the Browns scored a touchdown blocking the field goal and running it back, because you know what would have been worse? If they tackled him short of the end zone and they had time to run play.
Score a
Like,
touchdown.
they scored a touchdown with 14 seconds left, and then there was 14 seconds at the end of the half. Do you understand how stupid that is? That if the field goal gets blocked and by some miracle or whatever, that he gets tackled or pushed out of bounds, whatever, and now the Browns like, "Oh, we got, like, 17 seconds left. Like, we have a few shots at the end zone here." And you're like, "Jesus Christ, John, how in God's name do they have time on the clock? The Eagles called timeout? Are you serious?" Like, that is what I'm talking about, where the decision making and every time that he has to do
He's
something
obviously. I mean,
is
Sirianni's.
terrible.
I mean, if the Eagles are like giving him tenure, we'll say, he's certainly not acting like it. Like, it's to me, it's almost like Doc Rivers like levels of like just not reading the room or getting a
No,
temperature
no,
of the
he
game.
can never read the room, and it's like,
He's basically like Doc Rivers if you think about
yes,
it.
he's quickly turned into Doc Rivers, where he can't read the room, so he's always saying something that makes you wanna rip your hair out, and then he it consistently makes the wrong decisions. He consistently acts like a child. Like, they challenged the play because Watson's knee was down before the pass to get the sack, and it's like he like spikes the challenge flag on the field, like a big emotional, like, yeah, like, look at what I'm doing to help the team right here. And it's like, dude, can you for like a second stop acting like a jackass? And I know that the team told him, listen, we need you to be yourself, because when you're, like, weird and not being yourself, it's a lot worse somehow. But why is yourself, like, terrible? Why does yourself, like, suck? Why are you jawing at fans? Why are you jawing at players? Like, he had such a weird post-game interview like he always does. It's very uncomfortable. It's very
I found
Gabe-like,
it
and
like
I
I know
think I
I
personally
saw
think
like
it's
I
worse
saw
than
on
Gabe.
people on Twitter like the whole kids thing, the Philly media like getting on him for the kids thing. To me, I thought was stupid because there was so much worse in the game to get on him. Like, picking that kids thing as your hill to die on is very odd to
Yeah,
me.
well, listen, I get it, but it's just like,
But to me, though, I mean, the thing that was really bothered me, especially on offense, was
mhm,
that, you know, like, you knew the Browns defense was going to show up to play that game because in their minds, it's like, it's a must-win game for them, even though they're so like hapless.
yeah,
What like really got under my skin was that, like, you just see like the route trees they ran the first week of the season for AJ and Devontae, and they looked way different. And then you see what they ran against the Browns, and it's like, it's to me, it's like, is Sirianni meddling? Because it's like, let's just, I'm picking the Giants anyways. That's my
yeah.
pick. But like, do you feel like Sirianni meddles because he's such a child that he doesn't want Kellen Moore to get credit?
Yes.
Do we think Kellen Moore is way better than he actually, like? I think this is all three of these statements I'm going to say are true. I think Sirianni's worried that Kellen Moore is going to take his job. They're going to fire him mid-season and install Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I think that Kellen Moore's not perfect. I mean, you saw him with the Cowboys, and like, I mean, he was the offensive coordinator when, like, Dax was just like, being a turnover machine, and you're like,
Yeah,
why?
but they were putting up just absurdly good offensive numbers still.
Yeah,
Dak was throwing for 4,500 passing yards under it. Like, it's just the Cowboys were leading the league in scoring and shit. Like, it's just it's it drives me insane. And it's like, Kellen Moore's gotta take a beating every week on Tuesdays when he talks to the media, because every week they say, "Oh, when you were with the Chargers and you were with the Cowboys, those teams ranked this in play action and this in under center and this and this and this." And with the Eagles, the Eagles are the bottom 5 in this, and this, and the same stats. What is that? Is that a Sirianni thing? Is that is that you? Like, is that a Jalen thing? And he's
Yeah,
like,
they're basically.
"Oh,
Oh,
it's."
they know what they're doing. They want him to throw
Well,
Sirianni
they
under the
wanna
bus
they
and be like,
wanna give him something, and he's gotta sit up there and say, "Oh, like, it's matchup dependent, we like to think we do." He gives these non-answers, and it's like, you know how ridiculous it has to be for you to come to a new job and totally change the way you do things because the head coach is a child? Like, it's insane to me. This team is close to being on the right track, and it starts with Sirianni just getting as far away from doing things that matter as possible. Like, that's the start. You look at the defense, and it's like it might be the whole Fangio thing where it gets better at the end as the year goes on, and the communication in the secondary gets better, and, Cooper DeJean looked pretty good, and Sidney Brown will be back soon. All this. If the offense can really get its head out of its ass, this team can be something like at least like to fear come the end of the season, come playoff time. And what like I'd so much prefer if this team's just downfall is like there's just not enough talent on the defensive side of the ball. Like I can stomach that because I see it, I believe it, and they don't create enough turnovers. And that's the biggest issue. We talk about the set like I need my defensive linemen, when they do get to the quarterback, to try to rip the ball out. I need corners and D-backs and linebackers to be trying to jump routes and intercept the football because 2 turnovers through 5 games is inexcusable. You're on pace for, like, 12 turnovers all season. That is inexcusable. You will not win a lot of games that way. You will not blow out any teams that way because it's very hard to blow teams out without forcing turnovers, and they
funny
don't.
enough, Michael, the New York Football Giants have created the most turnovers in the National
Yeah.
Football League
Do you know what's
in
insane?
the
How are
last
you
2
bad
years.
at tackling and you also don't force turnovers? Like, if you're gonna be a bad tackling team, you need to go for the ball then. If you suck at tackling, just get the ball out then. Punch the ball. No one on this team punches the ball. I watch so many players, so many good players, so many average like, they just know how to go for the football. You saw in the Lions game, TJ Watt did it twice in the Raider game, and it's like no one on the team even thinks about trying to do it, and that's really, really frustrating. You because Jalen didn't turn the ball over against Browns. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. But he's going to turn the ball over like any quarterback's gonna turn the ball over, especially, you know, if he's trying to extend a play, it's just gonna happen. But if you're so incapable of doing it, the 2 turnovers they forced are 2 Reed Blankenship interceptions, one of which was like a force at the end of the Saints game by Derek Carr. The one against the Packers was actually really encouraging. You blitzed, you got Jordan Love off his timing, and you jumped a route, and it was like, "Holy shit," like, if you're gonna consistently do this, this is a good sign here. But they don't, and it's so annoying, and
Well, like part of the problem is like this is the third straight year you have a new defensive coordinator. I think like part of it is like we need them to gel, and it's not an excuse, Michael. I agree with you. Like
well, turnovers thing,
it's
like,
not
it's a
like
coaching thing.
it's not like the Eagles had like a 4 turnover game on defense, and then like we just don't see it for 3 weeks, and then we're like,
Oh, they have 2 through 5 games, like, that's awful.
and to me, yeah, and I don't know it. I don't understand like why you're so hyper aggressive down the field on offense, but then on defense you're so passive. It's
Well,
like
it's
you're
like you wanna create explosive plays and you wanna prevent explosive plays, so the way to prevent
well, like when
explosive
the New
plays in their
Orleans
mind is to
Saints
sit back and do nothing.
the New Orleans Saints in 2009, like Drew Brees threw for like well over 5,000 yards, so they obviously were very aggressive on offense.
Yeah,
But then on defense, they forced like 40 turnovers. Like, and their defense wasn't that good, but they got so many turnovers. Drew
yeah.
Brees just had so many chances to like score. Like, you want to give this offense more chances to score.
Yes, that's where all your star power is, and God, maybe they could benefit from a few short fields in a game before like, where it's like, "Oh, they only needed to go 26 yards for that touchdown because they got an interception on the, first set of downs," and it's exhausting, and it's upsetting because you're just kinda wasting around with this team, the offensive guys and stuff, and, with Mailata being injured now for 4 weeks at least on IR, um,
Goddard being out.
Goddard's
Knows
out.
how long.
Slay's questionable. It's just it's a tough spot. I'm picking the Eagles
I
because
mean,
I'm
dude, I just want to be wrong
thinking.
tomorrow. I want to be. It's like I'm not one of those fans like I see on Twitter. They're like,
No, you don't want to be like parading around. Yeah, I told you they were going to lose.
"Oh,
Like, no.
dude, I hate those people." I'm gonna
No,
close the
because
show.
those people were the people that were like low key celebrating when the Phillies lost in the playoffs. They were like, see, see, see. It's
Oh,
so
or the
annoying.
people are like when Jalen has a turnover, they're like, "I knew Jalen Hurts sucked," and they're like, "Put in
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett." Like, I just hate those people
Yeah,
too.
it's the worst. So
Yeah, it is. But I
nothing
mean,
like getting the blood pressure up to end the show, you know?
yeah, it kind of woke me up. Woke me
Yeah,
up. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. That
Anyway, thank you
makes
everybody for tuning in. Thought it was gonna be an abbreviated show, but it wasn't. But we'll see.
it was
And
abbreviated-ish.
yes, but thank you everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend,
Yep.
and playing great football on this weekend. Big game, college game tonight. Georgia,
Mhm.
Texas. It's gonna be great.
Yep.